Okay, we've said how important it is to retain employees, so the question becomes then, what can one do to limit employee turnover within their organization? Well, first of all, let's address a couple myths about retention. The first myth is that money is the main reason that people leave. Now, it is probably the main reason that people will talk about, but many times, as you well know, even if you've left an organization, there's been something underneath that's driving that, and you simply don't want to burn any bridges. So you're not going to talk about perhaps the trouble that you're having with your manager or supervisor, or how frustrated you are with the policies and procedures of the organization. It's usually much more than just money. Money is a case sometimes, but that reason is often over-reporting. A second myth is that hiring has very little to do with retention. And hopefully throughout this course, you can see how selecting the right person, getting a person who truly understands that the job that they're going into can really help you in your overall retention efforts. A third reason is lack of training. People think that if you train people, you're only going to train them for another employer. And while that's certainly a risk, many people do take the education that you've invested in them and take it somewhere else. The fact of the matter is, if you don't train people and you make that your philosophy, people are going to leave anyway. Don't be concerned about retention during organizational change, and that's certainly a time where you have to do a lot of communicating with your employees because they're a little bit nervous about the changes that are taking place, and this is just an ample time that people will leave the organization. And finally, if solid performers want to leave, the company cannot hold them. And that is simply not true. And I will tell you personally, anytime that someone has decided, they tell me they're leaving the organization, I always ask the question, what would it do? What would it take to keep you? And sometimes I'll get answers that are really pretty small in nature, and we can make those things happen. Sometimes it's just a few $1,000s. It also is a time for me to express to the employee to make sure that they understand their overall value and the overall benefits that they're getting from an organization. So for example, I'll say, now, are you going to get the same kind of health benefits that you're going to get at this other organization? Once they look into that, they may find out that they're going to spend a lot more money on health benefits and actually lose money by going to a different job. I'll ask them about vacation that they've earned. How about their 401k? Perhaps they're not fully vested yet and they've got many years into that and they don't want to lose those benefits. So it's really important too to make sure that an employee understands their total compensation package before they walk out the door. Other items are organization and management factors. So is an employee given enough autonomy in their organization to make decisions? If you give some folks some additional responsibilities, that often is a powerful motivator to have people stay. How about just the employer-supervisor relationship? How is that? Sometimes it might mean just changing supervisors will keep an employee. I'll also say, as a supervisor, it does great wonders for employees if you do things simply by things like asking, hey, I've got a decision to make. I'd like to know your opinion on that. What do you think? For someone to be esteemed that way, again, a very powerful intrinsic type of motivator. Another type of intrinsic motivator is simply job and work-life balance. Are you able to maybe give employees some recognition days off? Say, take Friday off, have a good long weekend. You know, here's a movie ticket, go out and see a spouse or significant other. If people are stressed in their jobs, again, they're likely to want to look elsewhere. Obviously, you do need to look at compensation and benefits if there are any issues there that you can take up. Again, are you invested in your career training and development? We mentioned earlier that sometimes, especially in smaller organizations, you may not think that there's opportunities. Let them do part of your job. Train them to be a team leader. Have them run some of your meetings. Have them do some of the budget work that needs to be done. Feel like you're continuing to invest in them. Could be volunteer opportunities. Let them organize and take care of, a 5K run for the organization. And employer policies and practices. Do you have a very command and control organization? Are there just a ton of policies that people feel like they're just loaded down with paperwork? Again, that can be very discouraging for employees, and you just may want to streamline operations there. To look at what's called in your text retention bundles. And that's not just focusing on one area alone, but looking at all these areas in combination, as that can be highly effective.